Good morning. This is Reginald Andre with the Miami Business Leaders Podcast. Thank you all for joining so much. We have a great podcast for you today. The Miami Business Leaders is where we delve into the core of what matters to the most to business owners. So thank you for tuning in today. Our mission is to empower, enlighten, and inspire entrepreneurs and business leaders like you by sharing insights, strategies, and real life stories from the heart of Miami's bustling business community. Whether you're just starting out or scaling to new heights in your business journey, we're here to guide you through every step. So let's dive in and explore the dynamic world of business together. And today we have Emily Manini from Left Uncharted. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Good. Thank you so much for being here. We met, and this is kind of the power of networking. We met at a networking event, specifically the Miami Tech Coalition. And I could remember you, I think you raised your hand, you gave a little about yourself, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is interesting because we're both in tech and you were talking my language. So it's that's why it's always so good to be out there. You're not just doing, Zoom calls and different different virtual things, but being out there eye to eye, elbow to elbow, because then you have these type of business relationships that start to grow. So Emily, for the world that doesn't know you, tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. So, my name is Emily Manini. I'm the executive director at Left Uncharted, which is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit focused on bridging the tech skills gap. Before starting Left Uncharted, I was a principal architect at Simpraxis Consulting for quite a few years, implementing Microsoft 365 for a variety of different business sizes and industries. Before that, I was the Microsoft 365 platform owner at a quick growing biotech. And I have a really curly background that actually led me into tech. And that whole narrative and story is part of what Left Uncharted grew out of. So we're aiming to build these pathways for adult learners with some non traditional backgrounds to potentially increase their tech education and skills and shift their career.
Awesome. I love that because, us as a business owner here at Arc Solvers, we many times get tickets from our clients where, we're supposed to be providing IT support and cybersecurity services. And they're asking questions about Microsoft 365 and asking like, hey, how do I do this? And, we help them and things like that. But we also tell them like, look, we're not a training company. We know it because we use it. And sometimes it makes a little sense to us, but we're not actually a training company. So that's, again, one of the reasons why I felt that it was important to bring this to our audience, because I feel that some of the upcoming events that Emily and her team is going to be having is really going to be beneficial to both business owners and users. So let's get started. Tell us a little about Left Uncharted and the offerings that you're providing.
Absolutely. So, one of our primary focuses is in that technology education space. So, we have a variety of programs that we are launching next year. We have 1-day events all the way through boot camps. Now, what's a little bit different about Left Uncharted is, to your point, there's a lot of different programs that are more focused on maybe developers or cybersecurity. We're really looking at that broader spectrum of tech roles and focused on that non code, non developer business systems analyst, project management role. There's a lot still in that range of roles in IT that aren't as highlighted, I think, in the industry. And let's say whether it's information architecture, user experience, people with different backgrounds might have different interest areas who wouldn't necessarily self identify as someone who is interested in tech. I know that was the case for me before I learned about information architecture and user experience. So, part of our programs, we're also trying to aim in showcasing that wide spectrum of different roles. As people attend these programs, they might decide that they do want to lead into that career shift, but they don't have that necessary opportunity. So, we're also building out apprenticeship opportunities through our consulting services. So that way we can offer sustainable rates to our local communities in consulting services while also simultaneously providing those on the job paid opportunities for our adult learners and career changers. Another barrier that sometimes people face is having access to that technology itself and the equipment to be able to learn. So we also offer needs based technology awards. And the last program that we offer is around fiscal sponsorship. So maybe you have a program you want to bring to your community, but you don't have that company structure set up or that tax exempt benefit to make it sustainable. We are available to be a fiscal sponsor for any of those tech education programs that also align with our mission.
I love it. Now let's talk about that because you mentioned the word career changers, and especially I see it all the time, being cybersecurity and IT, where we have our clients say, "Hey, we're going to be letting X person go in in a couple of days. We need you to be on standby, start making sure everything is backed up and things like that." And a lot of times when it's not an HR issue, we typically get that is because unfortunately technology has taken their role, and what they're doing now has been automated. And then now you find someone, usually later in their career, in a position where now they're like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for so long, and now I'm now finding myself back in the workplace. I haven't gone to school since the 80s and 90s, and I don't know what to do. So are you're seeing a lot of that, when it comes to people, when it comes to like trying to now see what they want to do. They don't want to go full into tech, but they know that they have to understand tech.
Exactly. I think there is a forgotten spectrum that we have of people who entered the workforce before there was solid technology
Right.
training implemented in schools. And for that whole group of people, we now have realized we need to create more support in schools so our newer entry level graduates have that experience. But you nailed it. That's the exact spectrum of people that we're looking to help. We see it a lot with the small businesses and nonprofits primarily because there is less funding in there to keep advancing that training and skill development. When we see the larger corporations or biotechs, for example, they have bigger budgets, so they have been able to continually invest in that skill development. So, through my work at Simpraxis, we saw that those smaller groups are really who need that additional training. And sometimes you're an IT consultant, maybe you're implementing a solution. There's not even long term IT support there, but you need someone to know just enough to keep it running and for that system to support whatever business process automation they have. So I really making sure that we have someone who can come just say, "Hey, I don't understand OneDrive and personal cloud storage and co-authoring." And they just need to do that because they're an office manager, for example, all the way up to the
Mm.
spectrum of someone who might say, "Hey, I came here just for that cloud sharing, but I actually love this and I want to do way more." They can keep going with us through more programs.
Ah, I get it. Yeah, because again, they're calling us to do training. Like, hey, teach this person this, and we're like, that's not our job, and that's not in our contract. It's out of scope and things like that. So there's definitely a need for what you're doing. So let's talk about some of the upcoming programs that you're offering. Tell us about that.
Sure. So, one of the signature events that we have upcoming is on Friday, February 2nd at the Miami-Dade College Wolfson campus. We're really thankful to them for being our community partners and hosting us. It's called Microsoft 365 Community Day Miami. It is a tuition free event. So, it is all day. We have 5 different tracks. There's going to be 60-minute sessions across all of those different tracks. They are led by different Microsoft most valuable professionals, Microsoft employees, and thought leaders in our community, focused on artificial intelligence, Copilot, the Power Platform, Viva module, SharePoint teams, and then we also have some sections that are more focused on the development and extensibility of Microsoft 365, as well as security and governance across the whole platform.
Wow. So let's dig into that. So if I'm an office manager at my office, or I'm a business owner. So let's kind of answer that in two ways. And the only thing I know about, and by the way, it is on the screen for everybody. So it's February the 2nd. We have a QR code there so you can register and it goes straight to the website. And we'll also put a link. So anybody that's listening to the podcast, we'll put that in the show notes. So back to my question, Emily, is I'm a business owner, and or I'm the office manager. So I'm in between the spectrums. And I go to your event on February the 2nd, and I need to know like SharePoint. I know my IT set up SharePoint, but that's all I know. When I need a file, I go to that little icon. So tell us like the perspective of both sides of what these offerings are going to be that day.
Absolutely. So starting with SharePoint and coming from, let's say, a user perspective, we have a track called Modern Work where that really does focus on how someone is going to be interacting with Microsoft 365. Now, when we say Microsoft 365, we mean more than just your Office applications of Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. We're also talking about those cloud containers where we can keep the content as well as any kind of automation that you might be adding to it. So, attending as a power user, you'll get a really good understanding of what capabilities there are. In these 60-minute sessions, they're all use case based. So, we're putting the technology in context of how you could use it at work. Some of the sessions are a little bit more hands on, where you'll be having live demos. Some of them are a little bit more art of the possible, where they'll give you some really good ideas to take away. We'll have an Ask the Experts booth throughout the session, so you can also go up one on one to talk to any of these experts and ask your follow up questions, get that one on one guidance. So I would say this is a great event to go to get a good idea of what is possible out there and some new ideas of how to implement Microsoft 365. As you want to expand your understanding and knowledge, I recommend joining one of our workshops or boot camps. So we actually have all day workshops the day prior on Thursday, February 1st. And if that's a situation where you haven't really gotten the chance to play around with Microsoft 365 yet, that's something you can join without even having a license. We're actually going to be having everyone set up their own dev tenants. So you have your own tenant cost free that you can build in and play with throughout the day and then leave the workshop with.
Wow, that's awesome. So it's nothing for people to get intimidated by, because this is going to be, there's a statistic. I think it said about only 15% of people only use 15% of a product, of a software. And, like, for example, Outlook or Word, you go in, you type, you know how to bold, you know how to send an email, Teams, SharePoint, like all of these things, you just use the basic function. But what employers, so I would say for the business leaders listening to this, you'll want your employees to go to this, because think of how much more productive they will be once they realize that, oh my gosh, our current process is step 1 to 10, but I just learned something, or I just got, an idea that now our process can go from 1 to 5 using one of these products that they're going to be talking about. So I always say you want your employees to be able to, work smarter and not harder. So I think that's a great aspect for all spectrums. In fact, I would even, bring all your team, or the supervisors, the management, because it's going to be really, really an eye opener to see all of the different functions that Microsoft can do for your company that you're most likely not utilizing right now.
And that's a great point too of the different perspectives. Very often when you are one of the individual contributors and you attend an event like this, you understand the how the work gets done and very specifically what some of those pain points are. So being able to see what those solutions could be, you could then advocate for them with your leaders of how you need support in getting your work done better.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we are with Emily, and we are talking all about a program that's coming up on February the 2nd. It's called the Microsoft 365 Community Day. We'll have the flyer up. I want you guys to know, if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the comment section below, and we're going to keep on moving forward. So talk to us about, how do you see, Microsoft 365 helping small businesses and nonprofits who don't have the internal expertise or information technology support?
Really good question. And it's a huge pain point that we're really trying to help address. I'm going to start with some of the things that are available today to start you out, and then talk about how the small businesses and nonprofits can focus on setting themselves up for success. So, one of the things that is really incredible is that Microsoft provides these business premium licenses for free, up to 10 users for 501(c)(3) tax exempt nonprofits. So,
Oh,
you have
nice.
free cloud storage, you have Microsoft Teams for free, you have SharePoint for free, you have Power Automate for free, which you can use for business process automation. So, the seat that I sit in is very often out of the box SharePoint capabilities, and they're so far that you can go with just metadata on documents in being able to increase transparency in how you're working better together. a really simple example. Very often, people have a manual process of working on documents. Then we have a spreadsheet over here where we talk about all the statuses and information about those documents. So we're maintaining information in two separate
Mhm.
places, lots of friction going back and forth between them. Short answer, that's just metadata in your SharePoint document library, and you can create sorted and filtered views that are specific to your work. You can create management views so you can see very easily what the status of items are, and all of a sudden, we're not doing all that work of creating those spreadsheets. So, first, start with that free business license to even put your content there so you can have it in the cloud and co author. Now, Microsoft also has a nonprofit technical acceleration program for US based nonprofits that support Black and African American communities. And they offer different grants within that program as well. So there's more support when it comes to getting that consulting service and guidance when you're first setting up your environment. And that is my big recommendation is if you don't have that internal expertise or information technology support, it's really important to find a good partner in Microsoft 365 to set you up right the first time, because that technical debt that you can create over not using the system to its full capability will end up costing a lot more in a migration later. Now, I know very often small business nonprofits, we don't have budgets for that. There is a huge network of volunteers in the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community where they're all awarded on their thought leadership and community contributions. So this Microsoft 365 Community Day Miami event is just an example of that. All of these speakers are volunteering and offering their time. So I highly recommend coming to events like this, going to the Ask the Experts booth and connecting one on one with these different Microsoft MVPs. They're creating content for free to provide to the community to support those gap areas. So, this is really a crucial resource of getting involved and connecting with these different people depending on what you're most interested in. So there was going to be a person that you might want to connect with that really specializes in Power BI because you care about business analytics and dashboards. Maybe you want to connect with someone around Viva because you're really trying to build out your employee experience. We'll have all of those different opportunities for you. So as I moved into Microsoft 365, I'll say I didn't have the IT experience or support, and navigating all of these free resources is ultimately what led to a career shift for me. So there is a lot that you can do without having to hire consultants and have that high budget.
And I've seen, and if you can go to the website, the ticker is showing m365miami.com. And if you go to that speakers, I mean, these are some big players here. I started to linking them. These are they. You're flying what most of these people in, right, Emily?
Absolutely. So we have people that work at Microsoft joining us. So we have our cloud advocates in the Power Platform. We have Microsoft employees from the developer space. We have international Microsoft MVPs joining us from all different places in the world. So we'll have a really global perspective in what we're presenting as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that again, this is just not no, little webinar or something like that. You're gonna, I mean, this is an in-person, it's all day, it's at Miami-Dade College downtown campus, and it's a very, very impressive lineup. So I know I'm gonna be registering, and I
Excellent.
hope, yeah, yeah. So let me, we talked about Power Platform, artificial intelligence, and Copilot. I want to, AI is the big word now, right? Everybody knows AI. Everybody knows, of course, Chat GPT. But high level, can you just go high level if you're because what I always like for my clients to understand is that AI is not only Chat GPT. AI
Mhm.
is so much. So high level speaking, and I know you kind of touched on it for a quick example there, but talk about how a business owner who's probably not using Copilot, who's not using the AI on the Microsoft side, how can that benefit? So if you can give like a high level general example for that, please.
Sure. So I will say I'm very excited to share that we are adding a workshop specific to using artificial intelligence with your basic Microsoft 365 licensure as one of our pre days. And the reason I'm calling that out is because There are a variety of co-pilots within Microsoft 365, and depending on the one you're going to use and where, there is that additional cost. So we are very aware of that need of typical business user who maybe isn't as in depth in artificial intelligence. So I won't steal all of Sarah Fenna's thunder for that workshop of what she'll cover in that time. But one example that I will share, Nielsen Norman Group, the world leaders in user research, did a study on using chat GPT to generate content. And I would say this is the primary use case that I see across all industries. That essentially they found there was a 59% productivity improvement. So, where I see a lot of businesses using it where they don't have that higher IT maturity is creating initial drafts of content. So, really trying to speed up that getting your throwing your spaghetti on the wall before you start to edit it and turn it into something that is specific and relevant to your audience. So in the study that Nielsen Norman Group, they saw that people spent more time editing. And at the end of the day, the editing is where we're contributing our special unique thoughts and information. That drafting of what exists out there that we need to carve down, think of it as your lump of clay, is really going to help in creating more content faster. It also helps support and reduce skill inequalities. So, a situation I run into very often, I'm building an intranet with different content owners. And let's say we
Mm,
have someone who is in finance. They are a subject matter expert in finance, but now they're tasked with describing their job and how finance works to the rest of the organization. Well, that requires a lot of communication skills. That's maybe more of a comms major, comms expertise. If I explain in my plain, messy language how I do my job to Chat GPT and say, please make edit this for clarity at an eighth grade reading level, which is
mhm.
recommended for writing for the web for everyone to access it, all of a sudden that's a lot more clear. So I think using this tool to help support and reduce areas where we feel like we get stuck is something that's going to be really helpful. I am neurodivergent and I know that I can get stuck sometimes in writing the words in an email, and to even just go to chat gpt and say this a different way and have it come back quickly edited can get you moving a lot faster.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Great stuff there. So now let's talk about the Microsoft 365 journey.
Sure.
I'm a normal user. I know Excel. I know Word. I know Outlook. I know the basics. But how do you recommend an organization begin their 365 journey when it comes to, pivoting from that little thing that they use just for that specific task that they have to now exploring the realm of everything the 365 offers?
Really good question, and probably the number one thing that I work on with all of our different clients. I would say overall, what I think is most important is to really focus on your company goals and outcome objectives first. What are
Mm,
you trying to achieve and where are there gaps? Then, once you know, okay, I need to, let's say we are putting out um, 20 different FDA submissions this year, and our gap is we don't have collaboration spaces that are well defined and structured to support that. That's a way higher volume of collaboration we've ever done. Next, we look at what are some of the ways that we're working now that cause friction. So once you identify those outcome objectives, I recommend looking at a resource that the community has started to build called the Maturity Model for Microsoft 365. I just popped a link into the chat. It's essentially a breakdown of Microsoft 365 into different competencies. So when you are looking at what you're trying to improve and what those outcome objectives are, they probably map to one of these competencies like business process, collaboration, communication, governance, infrastructure, search, staff and training, people and communities. So, what you can do is go into these different competencies in the maturity model for Microsoft 365. And if you're familiar with the capability maturity model, essentially it's ranking at different levels what the impacts would be of being at that maturity level. This goes from 0 to 500. 500 doesn't necessarily mean it's the best, that means it's the most complex. A lot of
Mhm.
organizations might be very happy at 200 or 300. So essentially, there's this document that you can go to, read through, and decide what level you want to be at to support those outcome objectives for each level. So, to make that sound way more tangible than I just did, let's say we are having a really challenging time in our communication at our organization. I can go to the maturity model, look at that communication competency. As I go through, I see at the level 200, it's managed. And some of those impacts would be that we have a central set of policies and that's managed by someone. Maybe that's what we need to achieve at our organization at this moment in time. Maybe we need to go further up to 300. 300 means we would have templates, images, logos all centrally managed. So it really just depends where you are in your growth. You can use this as a tool to bridge the gap between all the different departments that are in this conversation, whether it be operations, IT, communications, various leadership. So you have a common language around what you're trying to achieve.
So you bring up a good point in all of that, and I think for business leaders today, it's and especially as we're now heading to 2024, and now it's the time of the year where you usually reflect and think about like, okay, on the business side, what did I do good? What did I did bad? How can I be better? But I think this is the time where you need to like take a step back and now kind of like breathe and just like, okay, what am I doing in my business that's taking up a lot of time? What are we doing that I'm having to hire more, but they're repetitive processes? And how can I now like what are those pain points? And then now coming on February the 2nd and bringing those pain points and say, okay, these are my problems. Is there anything in the Microsoft arena that can help me? And not to say it's going to be resolved that day, but at least somebody can now give you a nugget like, oh, what? You're still doing it that way? Yeah, there's a piece of technology here that can help you with that, and at least it opens up your mind. But I think the first thing you have to do, and before you do any of this, is kind of like reflect to see what is it that I want to improve on, and then now see how you can use the technology. Because if you go in and you just listen to all of this, it's great, but I think it's going to be a lot of information overload. So, but if you go in first saying, I want to go in because my number one problem that my office assistant or my secretary or my finance team, they're always saying, oh my gosh, it's a month's end and we got to go through this whole process. Go in with that problem and now say, how can Microsoft give me a solution? And I think that may be the best way. It's kind of like what you're just saying, but I kind of just want to put it also in a more like you said, tangible way as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really important point that when we're making change and when we're implementing technology at our organizations, if it's not tied to a pain point or clear business outcome, then you're putting people through change for change sake. And
Right.
that's going to be really difficult with your change management and adoption in the future, especially the next time you try to roll something out because there was no perceived benefit.
Exactly. Exactly. Awesome. So it feels like every day there's a new release, there's something new coming out. But I want to get your top tips on the new releases that you're most excited about.
I do think that right now, we just had Microsoft Ignite, which is the biggest conference for Microsoft 365 put on each year by Microsoft. And we did a measure of how many times they said Copilot. And I believe it was something crazy like 289 in their book of news. So it's hard to talk about anything other than Copilot being released. That really is the focus right now for them. I will say that I'm excited for where Copilot is being added into our Office desktop applications like Word and PowerPoint, really bringing into where we're working what I was talking about before, where how ChatGPT can kind of give you that little nudge when you feel like you're getting stuck on that initial draft generation. So having that available, I think, to the average user is going to be something that's incredibly helpful. I also really appreciate that there is a huge focus from Microsoft on employee experience and how that's being supported through the Viva platform. So there's lots of conversations around learning. And I think that's really critical for us to keep talking about. It's been the underlying theme of this entire chat that tech is constantly changing and will continue to move quickly. And how can we support all of us staying up to date with that? And Microsoft creating learning areas so you can put this customized training into your environments is going to be really powerful in supporting that.
What was Microsoft Viva called something else before?
So there's multiple renames. So Yammer was renamed to Viva Engage, and then there's like multiple modules within the whole Viva platform. So Viva Syntax also has gone through rename, so it depends on which of the
Okay,
modules within. And that is something that Microsoft's famous for, which I guess
right.
is our job security, is that they name things, rename them, and they also name them pretty normal things. So it's hard to find when you're Googling them, like a team or a group.
Yeah, yeah, because I think was Viva at one point Learn like originally or no? Learn.com.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So yes, so for there's docs.com and support.microsoft.com and learn.microsoft.com. Those kind of all got integrated to learn.microsoft.com, and that content is surfaced in Viva Learning.
Got it.
And
Okay, yeah,
Viva
that's what I.
Learning is what brings it to Microsoft Teams, so you can ingest that Microsoft content in that single pane of glass.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. Awesome. So, as we start to get ready to wrap up, Emily, this has been really interesting. I know that I'm going to be sharing this with my clients. Let me put that back up too. Let me share my screen there because, again, the technology is changing, and I really think it's important for folks to go out to this event. I truly believe that this is really going to help the bottom line of your company, because if you can use the technology to utilize some of these items that you're not, like, I have some clients that are still pushing back on Microsoft Teams. They're still communicating via text message through internally through their, and like they're doing these group chats, and I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, what if now when it's time you need to share your screen, or if you want to share a document, like, this is why you can do this now in Teams. And so I, unfortunately, I think, and I know this is one of the reasons you're having this event, but I think the usage in organizations, and it's like, the saying, you don't know what you don't know. And I think that once people start to realize that, this technology is like really have been like just accelerated, and you can really tie in a lot of things now. Because remember, back in the days, you had different platforms not talking to each other. It was always kind of like a East Coast, West Coast rivalry. But now, even if, I have a lot of clients that are on Apple, and they still think, well, if it's Microsoft, it doesn't get along with Apple and Mac. And that's the opposite now. Everything was web based, so you don't even need to install applications. I know for me, I use OneNote, but I use OneNote on the web, just because I like the way it looks better, and I use it on my phone and things like that. So it's none of that. Now it's an open ecosystem for the most part. Everybody's getting along. Everything works. It doesn't matter what platform you're using. But definitely, we've come a long way. So as we start to depart, any final words, Emily?
Just a big thank you for having me. And to your point, people don't know what they don't know. I'm convinced everyone out there is secretly an information architect and metadata fan, and they just don't know it yet. And I can't wait to show them the other side.
Awesome, awesome. So I'm going to put it up one last time. We do have a podcast as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and, well, I'll let you do it, Emily. Go ahead and give everybody, for the people listening, your email address, and then also the link for registering for the Microsoft 365 Community Day.
Absolutely. So if you want to chat more, my email is emily@leftuncharted.org. And then to register for the event, you can go to m365miami.com. That's M as in Microsoft. Can't wait to have you all join us.
All right. Thank you, everyone. This has been another episode of the Miami Business Leaders. We do have another exciting, good one for you guys next week. And so please look out for that. I'll be sending out the advertisement in a couple of days. So have a dry weekend, everybody here in South Florida. And if you're listening from outside of South Florida, you should come to this event, February the 2nd, 2024. Beautiful downtown Miami, especially if you're coming from up north. The weather's going to be awesome at this time. So we'll see you then. Thank you. Bye-bye.